Hello there. Haven't done a video in a while, but there's something on my mind and I want to share it with you all. Get central in this bloody picture. Pseudo law groups. I'm sick to fucking death of them. But I want to tell you why I'm sick to death of them, because they're influencing people to adopt a poisoned worldview, a false remedy. It's all one big masterclass in obfuscating the inherent requirements for freedom and justice, and I'm really sick of the deception. It's fucking out of order. See, the one thing that all these pseudo law groups have in common in the fake fucking freedom movement is this: none of them talk about the dynamic that governs the condition of human freedom, which is objective morality, or the science of natural law, the science of behavioural consequence. And none of them talk about our existing, albeit ignored and obfuscated, common law constitution, which is trial by jury. So all these twats who are misleading people and offering them false remedies and fake solutions and bullshit made up jurisdictions and trying to form bubbles are just talking out their arse. They're talking pseudo law bollocks. It is the common law of the land, trial by jury, which is the remedy for society. And it's up for you to find out why that is. There's so much information out there. Ken Dewdney's work, Democracy Defined, the Manifesto, Will Keats' work, Common Law Constitution, my work on YouTube and Substack. This is a highly occulted subject. The occult is hidden knowledge. They don't want you knowing and understanding why the common law is the solution to statism and the effects of tyranny that stem from statism, because it's the people owning the law. The people own the law by judging on the moral legitimacy of all acts of enforcement, civil and criminal, in common law trial by jury. That means that us, you, we, the people, as jurors in civic duty, own the law by giving our conscientious judgments on all matters of justice. Why would you ignore that? That already exists, albeit very watered down and not operating authentically as it should. But that's only the case because of mass obfuscation and ignorance, just as is the case now. And all these fucking dirty little sneaky groups influencing people to do everything but look at natural law and common law. They're influencing people to adopt a poison worldview, and it's not on. It's not on because you're deterring people from the truth. That's how obfuscation works, and controlled opposition. It muddies the water and it confuses, it restricts clear thinking. So especially since 2020, when a lot of people realised that there's something wrong and that and that tyranny's ruling the show, and they wanted to do something about it, a lot of people in their ignorance of not understanding how the Constitution operates and being desperate to do something about it and take on tyranny have been led down the wrong path. And then they're influencing others to do the same. But this is why ignorance is dangerous and evil, because it perpetuates more ignorance and suffering. So therefore the status quo cannot change. And let's be honest, there's a lot of state assets out there in the fake fuck freedom movement that are just obfuscating natural law and common law, because they want you dismissing it. They want you not to look at the information that can better our world and help move consciousness forward. That's what it's all about. Perception distortion so that consciousness remains at a base level. So we're all here to play a role, to self-realise, to become individuated, and we're supposed to be moving consciousness forward. Do you honestly believe that these people are moving consciousness forward by getting people to put out to play whack-a-mole with every single bit of tyranny, putting out fires left, right and centre? Oh yeah, we'd have this council tax campaign. Oh yeah, we challenge this with the council, and all these individual pieces of tyranny that could be dealt with equitably, and if we reclaim jury independence, which is a community aligning with natural law by dealing equitably as a people with all crimes and disputes. So that's order as opposed to chaos. And I've just written an article on Substack about the difference in attitudes between people back then and now. So if you think about it, for the Runnymede event to happen, there would have been mass unity and passion for the common law. And that just isn't the case now. Well, it's not, is it? Everyone's confused, ignoring information when it's presented to them. And if you're doing shadow work, you know that you've got to chip away at that fucking ego. We're not supposed to have an ego identification. We're supposed to be aligning with divine will. But some people's ego is just hard as granite, cannot be chipped away at, and insist on promulgating these pseudo-law bullshit and misleading people. And yeah, I am angry about it, because these people, and the followers of these twatty groups have been given ample opportunity, have been presented with all the information time and time again. But at the same time, they know they're not getting anywhere. They know that conditions aren't getting any better. But they're still plodding on, talking shit. And there's a lot of people that I know personally as well who should know better, who really should know better. And I do think ego is a big part of it. And if you've been involved with these groups, and there's one group in particular I know that's just folded, but what they haven't done is admitted how they've misled people. And it's incumbent upon these people to set the record straight and put their hands up and go, look, yeah, I was talking shit, I was ignorant, I didn't have all of the facts, I may have meant well, but I was promulgating a poisoned worldview because I didn't have all the facts. I didn't have all the knowledge at hand to make a proper decision. Oh, dead end. And I don't know how much more of this nonsense people are going to swallow. Groups and organisations are the antithesis of individuation and self-realisation. If you're in a group and you're identifying with that group, it's just more tribalism. Essentially, it's collectivism. We're moving away from that lower state of consciousness into individualism and individuation. Should be pursuing our own dharma, which is our own path in alignment with divine will to move consciousness forward. And it pisses me off because there is so many people out there with potential. We could have thousands of people on this spiritual battlefield if they pulled their head out their arse and chipped away at that granite-like ego. As with shadow work, if you're doing it, you'll know that all progress starts with the words, I was wrong. You can't move forward unless you accept that mistakes were made and that you were on a wrong path. And if you've misled people, put the record straight. I mean, I was misled by joining a particular so-called freedom group, and I thought I was doing the wrong thing, the right thing, but I was coming from a place of ignorance and fear, and I fucked up. But I've been setting the record straight ever since, and that's why I put out the information that I do. That's why the trivium process is so critical in reality creation, grammar, logic and rhetoric. So knowledge, understanding and wisdom. Because the wisdom is the action part. And that's where you can really fuck things up, because reality is created through action. So if you don't have the knowledge and understanding of that knowledge in order to act in wisdom, then your reality isn't going to be great, is it? And when all those individuals not acting in wisdom adds up in the aggregate, that's how we form or co-create our collective reality that we're all experiencing. So it's our role as individuals to set the record straight and be persistent purveyors of truth, if we want the conditions of freedom that many people claim they want. But this is what really fucking bugs me. It's like, for anything that you want in life, anything that you really want in life, there are set requirements for achieving that goal. You have to do specific things. It's like when I was doing my house up, I had to plan things. I had to really think about what was necessary in order to achieve the finish that I wanted in certain rooms, like especially the bathroom and the kitchen. You know, the thinking about it and the understanding of how I was going to do it, do it via the best method, and You know, what materials would be best. You know, there's a methodology into achieving the requirement that you want. It doesn't just happen. And the same goes for freedom and justice. You have to know what the requirements are, and then they have to be known, and then they have to be met. We can't expect anything to change if we're not trying to influence positive change by putting the truth out there. And all these poxy little groups basically influencing people to challenge the system in more trial by a state-paid judge is fucking out of order. You know, people desperate, got no money, and go at them with this argument, that argument. What, against a state-paid fucking judge who's paid to defeat you? I just can't understand the thinking. You think you're going to win against a state-paid judge? What, we're all supposed to format these stupid arguments regarding council tax, mortgages, you know, whatever tax and whatever fucking civil tyranny they're trying to inflict upon us. You can't win in unconstitutional courts. The argument should be the courts are unconstitutional because they don't have a fucking jury. How can you expect to win against a state-paid judge? All right, mate. So any court that doesn't have a jury is unconstitutional under the common law. That's what you should be fucking arguing. Imagine if enough people said that en masse. Someone just copped a load of me. Getting the right arm. That's what we should be arguing. That. That the whole system is illegal, defunct and unconstitutional. Right, mate? Because no one is adhering, or none of the public servants are adhering to their oath of allegiance to the king. And the king swore to govern according to our laws and customs, which is the common law. So they're all bound by oath. If you was picking at them with this information, you know, if we were to do that en masse, then we'd be getting somewhere. That's the Achilles heel, is the common law, trial by jury. Because all the sole responsibility, the sole aim of government, spit it out, the sole aim of government is to uphold the Constitution. And this is proven via their oath of allegiance to the king. So they're all working to serve the people. So it's the role of the king and his administration to uphold and preserve the framework by which the people judge on the justice of the law in trial by jury. So therefore the real government is the jury, the people. What we call government is really just an administration to uphold that framework. It's very simple. Truth is always simple, but it's the job of tyrants and wicked people to obfuscate the truth so that your perception is distorted and therefore your behaviour is manipulated and out of alignment with reality. I'm not going to stop with this message because I know there's people who should know better. It's either that or there's something more nefarious going on. Well, there clearly is anyway. I mean, I could rattle off a few names right now. But the name of the game in the freedom movement is to distract you from natural law and the common law of the land. And trial by jury is how people govern themselves in alignment with natural law. Because it's how people address immorality, crime, equitably. And I mean, to be fair, I recently had a message from someone in the Freedom Under Natural Law group who said that they're starting to realise the critical importance for having an equitable justice system, because he said otherwise, if you can't settle disputes fairly, then there'll just be fisticuffs. Yeah, of course. I mean, that's a big contingent of people there in the One Great Work Network or Freedom Under Natural Law. But again, I think it's a big ego problem. Like, they've been pushing a certain narrative for so long, and I mean, it's obviously the spiritual science of natural law, objective morality, is critical. But in order to have that anarchic lifestyle, without rulers, without tyrants, there has to be a means by which people can do justice fairly. So there has to be a means by which people can do justice fairly, and this is the ancient customary practice of trial by jury. It predates Magna Carta. Magna Carta was just reaffirming it during a time of great tyranny. They was holding King John to account because he was supposed to be preserving that framework, not stealing people's properties and arbitrarily punishing people. So, it's the same predicament now. We've got public servants taking the piss because the public have allowed them to step outside of their constitutional limitations. The Constitution is simply principle, which means if anyone steps outside of those principles, then they're held to account through the jury. So no one is above the law, not the king, not MPs, not anyone. And they definitely can't step outside their limitations by using the legislature to legislate for tyranny and injustice. So every tyranny we face can be dealt with equitably by a jury of our peers. That's 12 of the community coming together to deliberate. So there you have the impartiality and the nuance. This is what the natural law contingent, they lack. They think, yeah, you've breached objective morality. Walla! It's. I mean, if you read that article, that conversation I had with Larkin Rose was on that subject about taking the law into your own hands. No, that is just more chaos. Yeah, read that article on Substack. It's My Interaction with Larkin Rose, I think it's called. It's shocking. It's really shocking how some people think regarding justice. And if you remove impartiality and nuance, then you're removing conscience. So in a sense, then you are effectively influencing. You are effectively influencing people to follow orders, and as they teach, the natural law lot, following orders is diametrically opposed to conscience. You cannot reach a fair and equitable verdict without the community coming together to impartially judge on the moral legitimacy of the judgment, of the act of enforcement. That's what judicium parium is. A judgment of peers, which is the community coming together, 12 jurors, to exercise conscience. So if enough people start educating on this, then as momentum builds, all it will be is a case of reclaiming what already is. There is nothing new under the sun. Everybody knows that behaviour, or the quality of our behaviour, or our morality, affects everyone else. That's why it is the governing dynamic of the conditions we experience within society. You don't need religion for that. Because that's another thing. Christian nationalism is re-emerging, even within the fake fuck freedom movement. Oh, it's embarrassing, isn't it? It's just so ridiculous. Religion places all consciousness in a box and tapes it shut. It's not expansive for consciousness. It retracts it. It confines it. And it limits your imagination and your thinking to a set of dogmatic rules and thinking. That's why it's exoteric information. It's easily accessible, as opposed to esoteric or hidden or occulted, because you've got to do the work, and you've got to really, have the care and the will to seek out this information. And nationalism is just taking a flag and wrapping your consciousness in it. That's all it's doing. It's authoritarianism under the guise of national pride. So they're combining the two, religion with nationalism. And it's, how many times do we have to see these examples of deceit and leading people astray? But again, as with groups and organisations, religion, nationalism, it's all collectivism. It's confining consciousness to a restricted and limited way of thinking. So it either makes you left brain dominant or right brain dominant, depending on the ideology that you're being influenced to adopt. But the aim is to merge both hemispheres of the brain, so you think so that you achieve holistic intelligence. So if you care enough about the human condition, which is agape or cosmic love, real care, true care for the human condition, then you will seek out the esoteric information. Or the occult, the hidden knowledge, the spiritual science of natural law, and the hidden mechanism and purpose of the jury, which is self-governance. The fact that we even have annulment by jury, which means the people are at the top, Because if you can annul an unjust legislation and give a not guilty verdict when the legislation on paper deems someone to be guilty, then who's in charge? The people. Judicium parum. Judicium parium. The people exercising conscience to deliver a verdict. So even the subject of the jury is occulted, and that is why there's been so much shit talk about Magna Carta. Because Magna Carta was a bombshell for all future statists. Because for the first time on paper, it resigned everyone, including the most senior public servant, the king, to a rule of law. No one is immune. And as Ken Dioudini writes about a lot in Democracy Defiant, the manifesto, cost-free private prosecution under equal justice for all. No one is immune. Is that not a reason to unite? To issue cost-free private prosecutions against Midazolam Mat, Sadiq Khan and his unlawful TFL, all those legislating for injustice? It's all in breach of the Constitution because it's shitting on our individual rights. It's impinging on our free will. That's why it's there, so everybody knows. For the avoidance of doubt, nothing can be enforced against an individual without the conscientious judgment of our peers in common law trial by jury. That's what Article 39 was. That's the principle of natural justice that Article 39 was laying out and was reaffirmed in Magna Carta for the avoidance of doubt and sealed in perpetuum, in perpetuity, meaning forever, because it's a principle of natural justice. It cannot be altered, it cannot be removed, it cannot be argued with, because it's elevating individual rights. It's simply saying live in alignment with natural law, do no harm, the golden rule. Do not do unto others as you would not have done unto you. My rights end where yours begin. But equity is the check on free will. So if there is a dispute or a crime, for there to be justice and order, the matter must be dealt with equitably before a jury of peers in the community where the transgression occurred. And we appoint a king or a wise elder, because they're the same thing, to help us enforce that process of self-governance. So the king and his witan, his administration, their role is to uphold that framework by which the people are the judges. And I write a very detailed but simple explanation on this on a few articles back on Substack called Government is Not Slavery. Anarchy does not mean no rules. So please read that. I lay it out ever so simply. And I have no shame in saying that me and the people putting out this information, we need more help. We need more people putting this information out there. Half the reason we're in this mess is because the mass control of media is putting out distorted information and lies. So they're creating reality by distorting perception. So we have to counter that by being persistent purveyors of truth. But that means getting up off your arse and doing something about it. Do we have to be living under overt violence like there was back in 1215 before we got up off of our arse? And that's the difference between 1215 and now. People cared about the common law. There was overt violence. So people got off their arse and did something about it. And I think it was approximately 7 months from the time Archbishop Stephen Langton and the Barons swore at the altar at Bury St Edmund's altar, cathedral, or church, forget what it is. They swore at that altar that they would get King John to ratify Magna Carta. And you think what's happened since 2020? They shut the fucking world down over a hoax. And they continue to take the piss out of us ever since. What are you going to do about it? Does there have to be mass violence? Just because the slavery is covert through policy and legislation, it doesn't mean there isn't enough of us to make a difference, because there's loads of us who know what's going on. But back in 1215, the Archbishop and the Barons, they would have had masses of support from ordinary people. They had to have, for them to bring King John, an absolute fucking tyrant, to Runnymede. To seal Magna Carta. So he was publicly humiliated by having to reaffirm his oath by sealing the parchment. Because if he hadn't, he'd have lost all legitimacy or suffered a worse fate. So it was a very clever manoeuvre, that, the 1215 Runnymede event, because it placed the rule of law at the centre of the Troubles. That's what me and my associates are trying to do now. We're trying to bring the rule of law, the thing that will create order, into the conversation, into the centre of all the bullshit. By educating the public that we own the law as jurors. Nothing can be enforced against us, civil or criminal, without a judgment of our peers. That's something to unite over. That's the uniting factor. Because you're bridging objective morality, the quality of our behaviour, with a rule of law. So you're allowing for anarchy, which is no rulers, but you're applying equity. Everyone being equal under a system of law, whereby individual rights are protected. So in the event of a dispute or a crime, the jury deals with the matter. And the jury is actually shadow work. It's a shadow work workshop, as Will Keat calls it. Because you're addressing things as a community and you're increasing civic mindedness. And by getting people to apply their conscience and question, because we're dealing with crime and issues of morality, you begin to, it's an alchemising process where you really think about things. And everything, like in a court of law, everything's put on the table, and it's an alchemising process. It's like in esoteric Freemasonry, it's symbolised by the 2 ashlar blocks, the chiselling away and the refining of the ashlar block to make it smooth. That's what you're doing as a community. Consciously with the jury. So with a jury, everyone comes together. You're using a system of law in each community to address crime and civil disputes. So therefore everyone becomes responsible, and that's the key point. By removing the state removes our opportunity to be responsible, so it can control us, create dependency, and the most important thing it does is restrict free will. It punishes you for living responsibly, or going against the government diktat, because by limiting and restricting free will, you reduce the possibility to progress in human consciousness evolution. That's a really key point. It's free will is how we expand as a species. And all occult traditions taught how the quality of our free will decisions add up within the aggregate to create the conditions we experience. So we're all bouncing off each other, co-creating our reality, and through cause and effect and karmic consequence, positive and negative, we learn. And the jury is a huge part of that, because as consciousness improves, it will also be about restorative justice, not just punishing people. It will be about healing, making people better, psychologically, spiritually. I'm doing 42 minutes I've been waffling. So the main message of this walk and talk is these groups need to fuck off. People need to start telling them what they are. Deceptive, misleading, getting people in trouble with pseudo law. They've all got one thing in common. As I said, they obfuscate or neglect to talk about objective morality and our common law constitution, which already exists. It's just being ignored and obfuscated by the state and the public, because the public don't understand how it's supposed to operate, so they just think that tyranny is the status quo. It's up to us to educate. Education is the key, and I know people don't want to hear that because it means getting up off your arse and putting the information out there, but that's what it takes. That's the requirement. Put your face on a video, write an article on Substack. Just start slow. I did. I was nervous at first, but I got a good reaction. And I think when you're authentic and speak the truth, people can tell. They just know. And then it spreads and people were sharing it. The universe favours courage, my friends. Courage. Be courageous and put the truth out there. Bye for now.